Alright, what is up my homies, and welcome to Day to Gray Gaming. So, today we're going to be taking a look at Jamaica Plain. This was one of the settlements that showed up on our top 5 worst settlements list, and there was actually a fairly decent amount of backlash on that one, as a lot of people actually like Jamaica Plain. But a lot of those people also admitted to using a lot of mods, and of course that list was for people who either do not have the option to play with mods, or just choose not to. So, this is a settlement build for no mods, no glitches, any of that fun stuff. We're really just working with the basic elements of the workshop. And this, I didn't want it to just be another concrete only build. So we are going to be working a lot with the wood build sets, a lot with the barn build set, and a lot with the concrete build set with some of the scrap fences and stuff built in. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we were able to create using pretty much all these settlement elements. So here we have this main wall. So the entire settlement, for the most part, is completely circumnavigated by a wood shack wall. We also have these turrets facing one of the major spawn points for attacks. So this parking lot up here is where a lot of the attackers will spawn during settlement attack sequences. So I figured this was a good place to dump a lot of turrets. We also have a number of these elevated firing platforms, which you see at many of my other settlement builds where I'm not working with a tower build. These are more for if we are dealing with those circumnavigated wall type builds. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, for whatever reason, this guy levitates. I can't figure out exactly why he just floats here. I've played around a little bit and he just floats here no matter what, so we'll just deal with it. There are a number of these powered doors for a number of different sections of the wall, so we are able to completely lock down access to this settlement if we want, or at the very least funnel attackers to a very specific location. So just like all of my other powered doors, all I have to do is throw a powered switch and the doors will slam shut. So we'll start with just kind of a loop around the settlement, and then we will take a look at many of the individual structures as well. So this is kind of our outdoor recreation area. So we've just kind of got some tables and chairs piled around. We've got some vending machines. We do have our outdoor protection. And of course, there's another one of these doors that we can slam shut if we want. And that really comes in handy when we are dealing with attacks, as, like I said before, this is a spawn point. There's even some missile launchers left over from previous attacks on the settlement. And as we continue to move around, we are pretty much hugging the absolute outer boundaries of the settlement. So this wall kind of cuts the city street in half simply because we can't really go any farther out than that. So we do have one main entrance here, which is protected by multiple elevated turret platforms, as well as using some of the pre-war houses that are all boarded up in order to also serve as turret platforms. So even if someone does try and skirt around the outside of the wall, they are going to have to fight their way through this little gauntlet. And once again, once they get to the street, they have this one. So we have a nice defense in depth from our automated defense turrets. And we did rely a lot more heavily on ballistic turrets, which do not require external power sources. So even if someone did manage to cut power somehow, they really do not have the benefit of being able to completely cut off the automated defenses. They really just cut off the laser turrets. So moving around to this side, we do have more elevated turret platforms. And we do have this wall. This is kind of difficult to place. I still need to play around a little bit more with getting this little wall section a little bit more to where you can't cut through the door. I mean, nothing can actually get inside here anyway, but it still doesn't look quite right from the outside. But we do have that entrance cut off. So really, this is the only other entrance that we don't have the ability to completely cut off access with. But again, they do have quite a bit of automated defenses to have to blow through. And I've been thinking about placing another heavy laser turret right here to also protect this main entryway. And so this parking lot was kind of an experiment. I wanted to play around with the barn build set a little bit more than I usually do. So I think by the time this video posts, you will have seen my Commonwealth Contractor sequence on building a turn-of-the-century Wild Wild West style storefront. And this is kind of my initial prototype for that. It's a little bit smaller than we want, but it's all we really had the space to build given the small size of this parking lot. And we also built a bunkhouse using the barn build set instead of my normal concrete style apartment complex. And once again, we'll take a look at each of these in depth after we go all the way around the settlement. So we do have a trading post down here, so any traders who want to come and visit, they can. But this is also kind of the main Brahmin paddock area as well. So we have quite a few Brahmin here now. A lot more than you would probably suspect for a settlement this size, but that was all just kind of random. I think one of the problems here is that this feeder, I think, was oriented the wrong direction, which is why this Brahmin spawned inside our main tool room. So we'll deal with that as it comes up. And then we just kind of have this narrow alley, which connects us back to the point where we came in, where we have our handy dandy levitating dude, I guess. All right, he got out of there. All right. So now it's time to actually look at the different structures that we have. So in here we have the tool room, which we've patched the holes almost completely. There's still a little bit of an air gap up here, but we were able to patch almost all of the holes in this really run down, broken down section of the building using just the standard barn build set. So we do have our water pump, which produces enough water for 10 people. We do have our normal workshop stuff. We have power armor, weapons, chemistry station, and armor. And we are able to clip all of these through the wall quite a bit compared to what we normally get with the concrete, which doesn't like to interact or interfere with that. So we don't have to deal with a lot of like the gas tanks that sit on the back of these weapons workbenches. So it actually looks a lot more compact and a little bit more like what you would expect to find if you were dealing with electrical powered tools versus gas powered tools. And then of course we have our fusion generator, which produces all the power we need for the copious amounts of powered street lamps throughout the settlement. So this is our main tool room. I really like it, and hopefully now that I've got that Brahmin feeder spun the correct direction, we shouldn't have the issue with Brahmin spawning inside it anymore. All right, so we also just have food kind of spread throughout. So this neighborhood does have a fair number of plant beds spread about. So I decided to just keep all of the food in those planters for the most part. So we've got carrots, corn, our usual diversity of diet throughout. So some potatoes, razor grain, some mute fruit back here, a little bit more corn. And then we've also got these rows of carrots here in what is basically this nice secluded alleyway. So we do get quite a bit of food available here. Now, this structure is the mostly intact house that we get to work with, and it's the same basic story. So this is kind of serving the first floor as our indoor diner. So we do have these diner booths that could have been ripped out of a nearby drumlin diner. I believe there's one on the opposite side of the Jamaica Plains pre-war city. So we would have easy access to these styles of seats if we were trying to actually scavenge these from the nearby area. So a lot of in-universe explanation for that. Various signage relating to food and food consumption. We also have an Eatatronic that could have been grabbed from somewhere here in town. And we've got our normal wood cook stove with the piping pushed back through the other side of the wall. So you could see a little bit where it was clipping through on the other end as well. So moving up to the second floor, this we did use concrete for this, just to try and separate this out a little bit. So this is the settlement bathroom area. So in here, we have an actual bathroom. So I didn't go with the decontamination arch showers like I normally do. This is a little bit more scrappy of a build, so I wanted to go a little bit lower tech. So we just have the three-legged bathtub object for taking your baths. We also have our locker for keeping your clothes in while you are taking your bath. So we do have a little bit of privacy there. And then on this side, we do have our toilet and sink so that everyone can go to the bathroom. So stepping through here, we have the mayor's office. So this is a little bit more sparsely populated than I wanted, but I really couldn't come up with any sort of decorating scheme that I liked. Now, I have recently acquired some of the Creation Club objects, such as the mid-century furniture, the modern furniture, the home decor set, and the Nuka-Cola construction set. So there's quite a bit of new objects that I do have access to that could probably make this a little bit better. But for now, this is just kind of a plain Jane mayor's suite. So we do have various sorts of cabinets and cupboards for storing your stuff in. And we do have numerous different styles of light. So I was kind of playing around with different styles of lighting because I do have a number of just my regular go-to. Probably my favorite are these round rooftop lights. And you see these at almost all of my builds because they have a decent amount of light generated by them. Not all lights cover the same amount of area or with the same amount of brightness. So this is usually my go-to. So this was really an experimental settlement. So I was experimenting with the barn set a bit more, with the warehouse a bit more, and with different lighting styles. So you get a bit more of that scrappy aesthetic by being able to see these different light sources that could have just been pilfered from the nearby houses that make up the Jamaica Plain neighborhood. So as we step out here, we have a small sitting area, and we also have a bench for the mayor to be able to address their settlers, their constituents out here. So this is kind of our outdoor balcony for addressing the masses. So you kind of get that wasteland, almost like what you see at Good Neighbor when you have Hancock addressing the masses of Good Neighbor. You have kind of that same aesthetic here, but a lot more scrappy, of course. All right. So heading up to our bunkhouse, we once again have a few different styles of lights, and we have the barn set. So this entire structure was constructed using the barn set. So the doors have a much slower opening animation if you use the barn doors from the barn set versus the regular doors. But I did want to play around with them just because. So you do kind of see that slower door opening because I guess they're trying to say these are heavier because they're from a barn. I don't know the logic behind that. But they are otherwise the same normal accommodations you see for my other builds. They're just a container for settlers to keep their stuff in, and there is a bed. So we're trying to keep everything clean. We don't need junk laying around to show that these are lived in. The containers and the beds kind of show that someone lives here and they do have a place to keep their stuff. So in-universe explanation for a lack of decoration is simply the fact that we are keeping our stuff put away like actual civilized people. All right. So in addition to all of these different doors or these individual rooms, we do just have some beds out here in the middle of nowhere. So I actually could not fit enough rooms in here to support the entire settlement. So instead, I started just throwing beds wherever they would fit. So it's kind of that common house type aesthetic like you see in Fallout 3 in Megaton where they have the common flop house, or at Rivet City where they have the common room. So it's the same basic idea where some of your newer settlers or poorer settlers who can't afford the rent on a whole room can just keep their stuff out in a locker and they can sleep out in the open. So overall, I'm not a huge fan of using the barn or warehouse sets as a bunkhouse for my normal settler accommodations. They are not a very efficient use of space. This is actually a rather tall structure compared to anything else here, and it still didn't turn out all that nice. And we really only had enough space for 6 rooms. So I think that I probably won't experiment with this type of aesthetic too much any longer, but I did want to play around. Like I said, this was kind of an experimental settlement. So over here at the general store, we kind of have that Wild West style storefront. So we do have these large open windows for people to just kind of step by and see what's on order. And we do have our 3 different clerk centers or storefronts, whatever you want to call them, for your different objects. So other than that, it's really sparsely decorated. There's not a lot of stuff here. If you wanted to create a lived-in type of settlement where you've got racks upon racks just filled with junk, you can always throw that in yourself. But this is not, I mean, there's really not that much room to work with here. So I decided to just leave it as is here with just the general store, the clothing, and the armor. And of course, we have our layer 3 bar over in the main house. So an early prototype of my Wild West storefront here at this settlement. All right, and really the only other thing that we need to cover is our large shack structure over here. So we've got a few Vault-Tec slot machines. We didn't have enough room for our full arcade like we normally do, and we aren't doing a settlement of over 20 settlers, so we really don't need that much happiness generating stuff here. We have a population of 10, and our happiness rating right now is at 95, so we're not doing too bad. And so if I can get some of these people to get out of the doorway. Okay, we'll go up to the 2nd floor instead. All right, so top floor, we have our clinic area. And this is kind of just a general wellness and healthcare type facility. So we do have some gym equipment. We do have our clinic. We've got some park benches for people to sit and wait at. So again, going a bit more scrappy than our usual aesthetic of nice, comfortable couches. And there is the park literally right next to Jamaica Plain, so they could have easily scavenged some of this stuff up from very close by. And of course, we do have our faux raptor for people to get eye exams and such. And for the shop areas, I actually wanted these to be something you can just flip a switch and shut it down for the night. So the doors and the power switches are actually on the outside, so kind of just shutting it down so that people know it's closed. It's not really that secure if you're trying to use this as a means of actually keeping people out, because they could always just flip a switch. But of course, the settler AI isn't smart enough to do that in game. So you can effectively cut off access to one of these health and wellness areas. All right, can we get in here now? We'll risk it. Okay, so this is kind of our general bar and recreation area. So we do have a soda machine here just because there wasn't room in the restaurant for it. And we do have various different styles of seating. So we've got lawn furniture. We do have a couch that could have come from one of the nearby houses, a coffee table. We also have more of these diner booths, but without a table to go between them. So they could have just been ripped out because the table was too damaged. We also have this overstuffed couch. And we do have a barber chair in case we want to get our haircut. So all in all, it's not nearly as luxurious as you normally see at my other settlements, but it is rather luxurious by Wasteland standards still. And again, we have more of this park equipment like the picnic tables that could have come from nearby. In fact, I'm pretty sure these exact ones, oh no, Nordeggen Beach is under attack. Okay, so same style of picnic tables, but they are too damaged and don't actually have seats anymore. So the great in-universe explanation is that they just grabbed the better conditioned tables and made use of them. Hey, the fat guy's not levitating no more. All right, so with that said, that is really it for the Jamaica Plain settlement. So really great. I like how it turned out for a scrappier build. Again, this is not normally a build style that I use all that often because I prefer the cleaner aesthetic of concrete. A lot of people will complain about the brutalistic architecture of the concrete build set, but honestly, if your choices are living out in the Commonwealth or living in a large concrete tower, I think people will pick the brutalistic architecture. But with that said, I think we are ready to wrap up. Let us know what you think. Again, this was just kind of an experiment, me playing around a little bit with the various different build styles and working with sets I don't normally work with. As always, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I hope to see you all here next time on Gray Gaming.